Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and I'm back here with
Hey, it's Allie.
yes. So we are back once again. The mid-season pilot video we did, which feels like we just did that. Remember, we did that in like January through I believe like April. I think was very successful. That was a very fun video to do. We enjoyed doing it together, and so I thought, you know what? I do this every fucking year. I might as well just continue to do these with you because we probably will end up watching these together anyway. So we might as well do another one together, but we're doing it a little bit differently this time, Allie, because I had a thought that maybe could sort of, I don't know, be a good idea. In a way to kind of keep these, I think, a little bit more interesting. Basically, what we're going to do is, yes, obviously, we're going to talk about the pilots. That's still a thing. But we're going to do something a little bit different. We're not going into these as cold as we have, or at least I've gone into a lot of these very cold, not knowing a lot about them. This time around, we're going to have some knowledge about them because basically what we're going to do is before we watch the show, we're going to take a look at the trailer for the show. We're going to give our initial impressions on what we think the show is going to be, and then we'll meet back up here after we've watched the show and actually give like our full impressions on what we think the show will be from that point forward. But I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited to have you. Is there anything you want to say before we start here?
Well, I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah.
Once I saw the trailer the first time, I thought it was just going to be like,
Oh, I didn't watch. We're not talking about the trailer. We're talking about the.
oh.
If there's anything you want to say before we get to the first show we're talking about.
I'm just really excited to do this again, honestly. And like with this like new little thing we're doing with the pre-reaction, I think it's going to be really fun and it's going to add like a nice little touch and it's going to be very exciting.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and dive into the first show here. So let's do this.
Woo!
Okay. I'm going to actually rewatch the trailer for this one because I don't remember it. Okay, now we can talk about it. So I just watched the trailer.
Right. Yeah, I just rewatched it too.
All right. So this first show we're going to be discussing, I'm going to give you the floor actually to talk about this first one, since it seems like an area of interest that I think you would be a little bit more interested than me. So go. What is this first show, and then give your initial impressions on the trailer.
Um, I've just been like into like country shows and
What
movies.
is the show? You didn't say the title of the show.
Mhm.
You didn't say the title of the show.
Oh no, you were.
Oh, I said, what is the show? I was asking you.
You can say it.
Okay, Monarch is the show we're talking about. I'm just going to restart that. Okay, so this first one, Monarch, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm going to give you the floor for this one because I feel like this is an area of interest that you're going to probably have a little bit more to say about than me, because I feel like you guys know what I'm probably going to say. So, Allie, go ahead. Talk first about your initial predictions for this show.
So we're discussing Monarch,
Yeah.
and honestly, like once I saw the trailer and I just rewatched it again, just so like I know a little bit more, because it's been a while since I watched it. Um, like honestly, it really sparked my interest because I've always been into like country things. Like it kind of gives Nashville vibes with a little bit more to it. Like obviously like Nashville is one of my favorite shows when it was on the air. Um so and like anything that's like country related I always like love, even if it's not like entirely the greatest thing ever. I just always watch it just because of like I love country music and stuff. Um it definitely just gives very like nighttime soap opera kind of thing, but like
Oh yeah.
it does seem like a fun show overall. Like, I mean, it could be a hit or miss. Like, maybe it's gonna be really good, maybe it's gonna be kind of just meh. But I am excited to watch. I'm definitely going to. It doesn't seem like a show that I'm not gonna stop watching, even if it's not the greatest. Um, I just want to check it out because of like Trace Atkins is great. Susan Sarandon's a great actress, and then
Oh
like
yeah.
all the and then like country artists that are guest starring. I'm excited about. Honestly, like the story seems pretty interesting. Uh, Definitely like doesn't seem as good as Nashville was, but I'm still excited for it. And for being our first pilot this season, I cannot wait.
Yeah, so this one, look, right off the bat, I'll just say country music's not really my thing. I will say this one has gotten me into a little bit more because I've heard it constantly, and there's been some songs that I like. What's that one from like Dan and Shay that I like a lot that you played constantly, like December? I like that song. Um,
I love Dan and Shay.
but in general, country music has just never really been my thing. It's not music that I listen to very often. So already I'm not that interested in this show. Watching the trailer though, I really can't get excited for this because to me, this really, you brought up Nashville. I didn't watch many episodes of that show. I thought it was just kind of okay from what I remember.
So good. You love it.
This reminds me a lot of Empire, and Empire was a good show. I liked Empire a
Watch
lot,
it.
but I think this is way too similar to Empire, where it's like you have Susan Sarandon. She's built this like empire for herself of sorts, and she's built this
Mhm.
whole like family legacy. She's this big country star, and now you have her two daughters, and they're trying to they're trying to replicate that success, but they're like battling it out, and one of them's doing a better job than the other. And then you have like some love triangle that seems like it's going on. Like I don't know, this could really go either way for me. I feel like there is a way where this could be a lot of fun. Susan Sarandon, like you said, is definitely something that piqued my interest. I think it's really cool that she has a show going on. I can't think of
Same.
the last time Susan Sarandon was in like a TV show. It was Feud, and that show was fucking phenomenal. I don't think this will be on that level at all, but Susan Sarandon is a fantastic actress, and I think
Oh yeah.
she, if this show is not great, I think will at least be the thing that like keeps it somewhat afloat. Um, in regards to everything else, we will really just have to see. A lot of this to me does feel kind of like a pale imitation of Empire, except for the fact that Susan Sarandon doesn't have ALS, because that's how Empire starts out. We find out that Terrence Howard's character has ALS, and one of them has to take over in his footsteps and things like that. And then, spoilers, he gets cured of it magically, like halfway through the season. It makes no fucking sense, but yeah.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that literally does happen. They never bring it up again. Um, but yeah, I don't know how this is really going to be. There's other moments like her putting the fucking curling iron in the bathtub, like stuff like that is just like so typical soap opera to me. You talked about the country cameos. I'm actually very worried about these because I feel like these are going to be very gratuitous, very like, oh my god, look at this person, look at this person, look at this person. Like, I hope that's not what this show is. I hope that they're able to focus on like their own story and not just try to appeal to people like you who are country
That'd be
music
cool.
fans and actually like focus on like their own story and not try to
Mhm. I'd like that.
overcompensate with all these like endless cameos. Like, we don't really need that. So yeah, I don't really have too much interest in this one. I'm kind of just expecting like a very typical over the top soap opera with maybe some good performances in there, but that's really all I have to say in regards to this one. I'm not really looking forward to it all that much, but anyway, we will see how it turns out, and we won't have to wait much longer because we're going to go ahead and watch this first episode. We're going to actually see if we were correct about many of our predictions, and then
Right?
after that,
So excited.
we're going to come back and we will let you guys know how we feel about the first episode of Monarch. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and we will see you guys. All right. So we just watched the pilot for Monarch. Obviously, we talked about the trailer and things like that. And I guess I will start out since I had you start out last time. So what I will say about the show, there's definitely a target audience for this show out there, but I can be very clear in saying I'm very much not one of them. I did not enjoy this pilot very much at all. I think this is one of the lamest attempts to cash in on like the secession, the empires, that kind of show, and do your own sort of like just very cheesy derivative version of it. That's pretty much the show to me. It feels like the creator of the show was listening to a hefty amount of country music. She was doing all the cliches with country stuff. She tuned into an episode of either Secession or Empire and said, I want to do that. And this is the show that we have as a result, and it's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie. Starting off, the beginning of this pilot, I thought was really fucking stupid. There's this like out of nowhere narration from Trace Adkins. It lasts like 5 seconds. It lasts like, I want to say like 30 seconds long, and like we never go back to it until the end of the show. And I'm just kind of like, why do we need to start this out? We don't know the context of anything. It just was a very jarring way to start off the show for me. But then when we get further into this, I talked about before how, well, this is kind of like Empire, except Susan Sarandon doesn't have ALS. No, she doesn't have ALS, but she's still fucking dying in the show. Like, the whole thing in the show is that she is dying. She wants to pass on the legacy to one of her kids. So it literally is Empire. Like, that's literally the plot of Empire. And this is beat for beat the same thing, except not nearly as interesting as that show. Because here's the thing about Empire and also Secession. I haven't seen a lot of Secession, so I can't really compare it much to that. I need to watch that. We need to watch that one still.
Yes.
But the thing that Empire does so well in the pilot is it gives you a reason why each one of the kids want to take over the Empire. Jamal has a reason, Hakeem has a reason, and Andre has a reason. They each have their own reasoning, and that is what draws you in. This pilot did not do that for me. I felt like there were way too many of them. I only latched on to really one of them, and that's Anna Friel's character. I like the character of Nikki, how she's kind of constantly been seen as like she's playing second banana to her siblings. She wants to be taken more seriously as an artist. She's not really getting those opportunities. That is a good plot line. That is a good motivation. That could actually go somewhere. That is the only character this entire pilot that I actually felt somewhat latched onto. All the other characters, no, forget about it. There was like nothing to them. Joshua Sassi, I like him a lot in things I've seen. He's terrible in this. The accent that he's doing, wow. I was just not liking him at all. He seems so bored throughout this entire thing. I am not invested in him really at all. And then Beth Ditto is fucking terrible. She doesn't. So from what I understand, she's a comedian. She doesn't have a ton of acting experience, and it kind of does show here because it really does seem like she's reading lines off a script most of the time, and it is not in any way convincing. And Anna Friel is really the only person that stuck out in terms of acting to me. Susan Sarandon, obviously great actress. If you can get past how terrible her accent is, because it's so in and out throughout this pilot. Sometimes she's Southern, and then sometimes she just sounds like Susan Sarandon. I think she still does give a good performance, but that being said, there's not enough of her in this pilot. She's very underused. I want to see more of her character. They hint at she's got like some kind of like troubled past. There's like a lot of things that she did. I can already tell you what probably happened because there's a scene with Trace Adkins where he goes to her and he confesses something. He confesses that when the barn burnt down, he was with some girl. He had an affair with her because I guess he wasn't feeling that spark anymore in their marriage. And so he went with this girl, but then the barn burned and she disappeared. I wonder what happened. Maybe Susan Sarandon fucking killed her. That's probably what happened. I'm sure that's going to be the big reveal. They say it's really shocking. No, it's not shocking. It's predictable as hell because they keep cutting back to it. Every single time Susan Sarandon brings it up, they cut back to this barn and show you a little bit more of what's going on. And I feel like it's pretty obvious she set her on fire. So like it's going to be something crazy like that. And it's not even remotely shocking to me. So yeah, the whole story, I'm just not really feeling at all here. And like I said, there's just a lot of characters that I'm not really invested in very much at all. Let's talk about the music. I do think the music is pretty good. I think there's definitely too much of it to where a lot of it just didn't really stick out to me. The cover of How Do I Live at the end I thought was actually pretty good. I liked the little spin they did on that. The editing is kind of terrible in this show. It's so choppily handled. Like a character will be speaking and then just abruptly cuts to something else. It was very jarring to me. It frequently took me out. I did not like the way the show was edited at all. And I also talked about the music cameos and how I was worried this was going to be a hindrance on the show. And I can already see that, yeah, it's a bit of a hindrance. Now, we only get one in this episode from Martina McBride. But the second that she came on, I said, this is literally just here so country fans can point at the screen and be like, oh my God, I know who that is. They can do a little Leonardo DiCaprio and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and point at the screen and recognize who that is. And it's just like, is this really what we're doing? Like for the first episode, we're already getting a cameo from a country star. It's like, do you have that little faith in your show that you think the way to sell it is to just throw a random cameo in there? It just felt so gratuitous to me, and I hope this is not something that becomes a consistent thing on the show, because I feel like the more they do it, the more people are going to talk more about the cameos than they're going to talk about the actual show. I don't think people are really going to watch this show, but I do think that is probably going to be a consistent issue because they already hinted at other actors that are going to be on there. Yeah, overall, I just found this very generic. Nothing really stuck out to me. There's a bit of a reveal, I guess, of sorts with one of the siblings that she has a lesbian wife. And we see that Joshua Sassi doesn't seem too happy about that. So maybe he's like homophobic or something. I don't really fucking know where they're going with that. But like that, I don't know why that was treated as like a big reveal. Like it was kind of stupid. There's a lot of stuff like that didn't work for me. Anytime they cut back to the stuff, in the present day, I could not take it seriously for a second. I thought it was so overly cheesy. And the ending, the way this episode ended with Susan Sarandon basically sacrificing herself, being like, I want to die on my own terms. And we get this sweet moment with her and her daughter where basically because she loves her the most, she wants her to be the one to kill her. But then her sister walks in and thinks she killed her mother. Are you fucking kidding me? Is this really what we're going to do? Like, this is just stupid. This is why I don't like these kind of shows. It's so over the top. From what I understand, Susan Sarandon is not out of the show. She's going to be in flashbacks from here on out. But I just think the decision to kill her off in episode 1 was not a good one. I think they should have waited at least a couple episodes to keep her on there, to establish a relationship she has with her daughter, because already losing her this early on and now she's just going to be like sporadic in flashbacks. Is really just not a good idea. I feel like Susan Sarandon is a big draw for a lot of people, and the fact that they killed off probably the most well-known actress already in episode 1, I don't really think that was a good idea. I just think that this show was just not very well put together. It was very derivative. I've seen this kind of show many times before, and this just didn't really do much of anything to stick out for me. Like I said, I think Anna Friel gave a good performance, but other than that, this was bad. I didn't like this at all. But what did you think?
I actually didn't hate it, but there's a lot of issues.
You told me you liked it.
I do.
Yeah.
I just said there's a lot of issues. I will say the beginning was pretty stupid and dumb. Like, I don't know why that was there. um, I did think the storyline was kind of generic, but it was also intriguing to me in a way too. It was just very, very typical, but like it was also pretty interesting at times too, like it has its moments. Acting wise, I did think the majority was pretty good. Then there were some people that were kind of just like not that great at all, not very strong. But Susan and Trace were great. Like I thought they did a great job. And then of course Anna, they probably definitely have the strongest performances in my opinion. Um it was very melodramatic, very soapy, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was I thought it was actually a decent premiere, but in my opinion, I feel like the show would get better as it goes on.
Mm-hmm.
But another issue is that, yeah, like I echo you that why would they kill her off in episode 1? Because
Yeah.
like, it gives me vibes of Ariana Grande and Scream Queens. 'Cause they literally killed her off.
I mean, that was different. It was like that character, I can at least say like they focused on her the least. So like
Well,
it made
yeah, but
sense
they
that
like
they killed her off.
they used her for promo, just like they're kind of doing with Susan.
I mean, kind of. The difference with Susan Sarandon is that they are still going to show her in like flashbacks and things like that. I just think that it was a stupid idea because it just felt like they didn't give us enough time to really get to know this character and her daughters. So then when she does decide to go out on her own terms, like it's that much more effective. It's not really effective at all. It just feels kind of like, oh, we're doing this already.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like very random, very
It
like
was very broadcast TV is what it was. Very broadcast TV. This is not, if this show was on like FX or HBO, I guarantee that is not the way it would have ended.
Yeah, they just made it very quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did like the music. I love that. The music just made me very happy. I was literally singing along to some of them, and like "How Do I Live," I really liked that rendition, and like it had its moments, but it also had a lot of mistakes. But I mean, I still want to continue watching and just for fun and see if it gets any better. Um, but yeah, it's definitely like one of those like guilty pleasure kind of shows.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, I gave it a B.
I gave
But
it a C minus.
I was I was kind of going back and forth between B and B minus, but I decided to go with B just based even like I still liked it. I just had a lot of problems. But
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully it gets better. We'll see.
I will say I don't see this lasting. Like I don't see it happening. I feel like
We'll see.
this is gonna be like the big leap. This is gonna be like other shows Fox has put out where it's like
Yeah.
it's music related and it seems like it's gonna draw an audience, but it doesn't draw that audience. And I just see that happening with Monarch. I don't see a lot of people talking about this show. I don't see it growing like a really big audience. I think the audience that it has is a very niche one. I don't think the
Mhm.
country audience is that big. And I just feel like this is the kind of show that, like, if this show came out like maybe like 7, 8 years ago, oh yeah, I would have done great. But I think right now, in like the general landscape of TV, I just don't really see this show lasting that long. But we will just have to see.
Yes, but
But
speaking of the big leap, we need to finish that.
we do need to finish that. We still need to finish some of the fall shows from last season. Some of the ones
I
that got canceled.
know.
Most of them got canceled actually, which is
That's true.
funny. But yeah, we'll see how this turns out. I'm
Like, I
probably gonna
mean, I will say it was definitely no Nashville premiere. That one was like, because that show was very addictive, loved it so much. But, this hopefully it gets better. I don't it's gonna be tough to get, like, a renewal, but we will see.
Yeah, we'll have to see how this turns out. You're probably gonna force me to continue to watch it, so
I
that'll
don't
be great.
force people to do anything.
You know what I mean. But yeah, that's our thoughts on I almost said Nashville. What the fuck? That's our thoughts on Monarch. Um, we're gonna go ahead and get into the next one in a little bit, but yeah, that's Monarch. Let's move on. So the next show we're talking about, of course, is Quantum Leap. We did just watch the trailer for this one, and I will preface right off the bat, I don't know if you know, this is a remake of a show from like the 1980s. I have
Yes,
not
I've never
seen
watched it.
Yeah, I have not seen that original show. I know how it ends, obviously, because I feel like a lot of people know how that show ends. But I do know that from what I understand, they're not straying too far away from the source material. But again, I haven't seen it, so I'm not really going to get into that with this. I don't think you have either, so I don't think that we can fairly assess whether or not this is faithful to the original source material. What I can say is that I do actually think this looks like a lot of fun. Anything with time travel, I always usually really do like. I like the idea
Same.
that he is from 2022, but he's kind of forgotten his memories. I think that the main actor seems like he's going to do a good job here. It does seem like a show that could go in some really fun directions. My worry is that it's going to get a bit repetitive. With every episode, him jumping into somebody else and trying to, like, change history and things like that. Sounds like a fun idea. I just hope that it doesn't just become the same thing every single episode. That is something I am a little bit concerned about. I feel like it's also pretty obvious, like the girl that he's partnered with, they were in a relationship, but she's hiding that from him. And I'm interested in seeing how that's going to go. I'm very worried about the visual effects. They don't look the greatest, especially when he was jumping out of that plane. I was like, oof, that did not look good at all. But yeah, I mean, this looks like a lot of fun. I don't have a lot of like predictions for this show other than I think it seems like they have done enough here to where this doesn't seem like a cheap like reboot to me. It does actually seem like they are doing a good job of making this show fit in the modern age. But of course, we'll have to watch the show to find out. What do you think? What are your predictions for this show?
I actually think it looks pretty good. Like you said, it looks really fun and just like very entertaining kind of show. And like I've never seen the original, and like I don't really know much about it. I need to like check it out. So I'm pretty excited. I'm kind of going in blind in a way. And honestly, that makes me very
Well, you're
excited.
not going in blind because you just watched the trailer.
Yeah, well, yeah, but like with not really knowing much about the show in general, like because I've
Yeah.
never seen the original. But I'm excited. It makes me like just really super intrigued, and like I hope it's good. Like it kind of gives me like Supergirl Flash vibes in some kind of way. I don't know. Um but I'm excited. It looks really fun and looks really cool, very unique, and this makes me want to check out the OG.
Yeah, definitely. I hope, I will say, I hope that's not something that happens when watching this pilot. I hope we're just not like let's just watch the original show. I hope this show is able to do enough good work to where we want to watch this version of the show and not the one that came before it. But we will have to see what ends up happening there. But we're gonna stop talking now without further ado. We're gonna go ahead and watch the pilot, and then we will come back and we will let you guys know how we feel afterward. So this is now the second time we recorded this video because your lovely whatever you want to call me fucked up and deleted the footage from the first half of the video of the first time we did this video. So therefore we are doing this again. And of course, as a result, the pilot is no longer as fresh in my mind. So I'm going to try to remember as much as I said as possible. But to start off, this show for me has potential. I do think Quantum Leap as a show has potential. I just don't think it fully utilized it in this first episode. Getting into it immediately, something I noticed within the first few minutes of the pilot is that this is not a remake of the show. This isn't something, you know, in the vein of like you know, when they tried to remake like Bionic Woman and things like that. This is very much a successor series to the original show. It picks up like right where that last show left off, where, if you don't know, the main character, this is the only thing that I feel like people know from this show, is that the main character basically goes missing. He never returns home. That's how this show pretty much starts off. And now the Quantum Leap project is starting up again. And already I have a pretty big problem with that, because I feel like the majority of people who are watching this show did not watch the original Quantum Leap. And so when this show is constantly like trying to reference it and things like that, I'm just kind of sitting there like, what? Now, by no means, I don't want the show to like hold my hand and like tell me, you know, what I'm supposed to know and things like that. But I felt like there was a way for them to still reference the original show without making it seem like required viewing, which at points this pilot very much does. And I don't think it was a wise thing to do that. I think they need to recognize that like a lot of people just didn't watch the original Quantum Leap. I don't hear people really talk about it aside from the ending. And I think that's something that definitely did hinder this show for me. I will say Raymond Lee is a very capable lead. He works very well here. He definitely can carry the show pretty well. He's very charismatic. He's very fun to watch. And I feel like he's going to be one of the best parts of this show. I can already see him really growing into this role just from this first episode alone. I mean, it seems like he is doing a really good job here. I like that this is a completely different character than the original show. I think that's really cool. I think that overall, you know, he's definitely someone to watch out for. Unfortunately, the character he's playing, I did not get super invested in this first episode, mainly because, and this is really my biggest problem with the show, is that I felt the introduction was very rushed. We really don't get time to invest in this character before he goes through time travel, before he goes into the Quantum Leap. I just felt like they didn't do a really good job of really utilizing that time, really giving us a chance to get to know the character. It's very quickly like we see that he's with this girl and then he's thrown into it all, and it just didn't really work quite as well for me. I wasn't really latching on to the character as much as I wanted to. So I think that was definitely something that hurt the show. I also felt that the show itself was painfully generic. Yeah, we have time travel going on here, but at points it very much does feel like any other procedural show. It's not really doing anything to establish itself as something more, and I felt that was really holding the show back for me. I had a hard time staying invested, also because of how little I cared about the actual mission that was going on, because I was like, well, we know this is probably going to be resolved by the end of the episode, and what you know, it's resolved by the end of the episode. So that didn't really do much for me at all. And I also felt, like I said, it used the original show as like a crutch to really just kind of rush through storytelling. It expects us to already know so much of what, and this is really my problem. It expects us to know so much of what that original show already established, and we simply do not. I don't think this show does enough of really standing out on its own. It's trying to use that original show as a way to be like, well, we don't need to dive into this because the original show already already covered that. And to me, that's just lazy writing. Like, that's the best way to describe it. It's lazy writing, and I don't think they established that very well. I will say the 80s setting I thought was very well implemented. That was something that I definitely will give this show credit for. And I do think the concept of leaping, I think, is actually very interesting. I like the idea that when he leaps, you know, he goes into all these different bodies. He kind of becomes them in that way. And he does it as a way to kind of like, you know, change their fates in a way. I think that's a really cool idea. And that's something I do want to see more of. And that's one of the things where I do think the show does have potential. The other problem with this show, though, is that there's another whole half of it that I haven't talked about, where basically in the present day, people are trying to figure out what happened to him. And this just overcomplicated things even more so for me. I just found myself very confused by what's going on. When it comes to his girlfriend, especially, I mean, is she in the know of what's going on? Does she understand, you know, what's happening here, especially because this is like his trusted companion in a sense. And I just didn't really understand what, you know, what her character was really going to be. Again, I will continue watching this because I do hope it does improve. I just think it does have some really strong ideas, especially about time and things like that. But I just felt they weren't quite as explored here as well as they could have. The action sequences are also pretty bad. The CGI is just really subpar here. Very much is evocative of like a CW show, and I don't mean that as a compliment. Anyway. What the hell was that?
I hit a video by mistake.
Oh, that's fun.
You can edit that out.
But yeah, very evocative, like a CW show and things like that. Yeah, I didn't hate this or anything. I thought it definitely had its moments, but overall, just kind of average for me. I think is the best way to describe this pilot. What did you think, though?
I mean, going into it with no knowledge or expectations, because I've never seen the original, it
Yeah,
was super interesting and fascinating, but I definitely thought the storyline was a little simple, like just basically it's just about a guy who time travels. But I thought it
yeah,
was still pretty intriguing as well. And I thought the cast was pretty likable, and
yeah.
I really liked Ben and Addison a lot. They were definitely like honestly, they probably were my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And then Ben's a really good lead. I feel like the show would definitely get better as it goes on in a way. Because like obviously the pilot was kind of just very simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it was a strong premiere. I feel like they'll get more into the story, like in upcoming episodes, but it was still pretty strong, pretty decent. It's a fun show, um, and definitely enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
And like I didn't hate it or anything. I don't have a ton to say, but I definitely want to continue the show just to
yeah.
see if it gets any better. At least like a few episodes or something. We'll see. I don't know how
I
many
do.
episodes. I don't even know how many episodes the season's gonna have,
I
but
don't
I
either.
definitely want to try it out some more. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think overall I enjoyed it, and I gave this episode a B.
I definitely want to continue watching as well because there's been a lot of shows like this where it starts off like super generic and then I hear it gets really good. Prodigal Son is a really good example. I didn't like the pilot of that show, but I've heard it gets a lot better as it goes on. It actually lasted another whole season, which I was surprised about because of how the show started off. Another example is Minority Report, another show that I didn't really like at first, but I heard the more it went on, the better it did become. And I feel like Quantum Leap is going to be one of those shows. I don't know if this show is really going to last at all, just because NBC recently announced they're doing something where they might just do away with like 10 o'clock shows entirely. So I don't really know what happens to this, if that is the case, but we will just have to see. Other than that, though, that's really our thoughts on Quantum Leap. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say?
Um, Not really. I just hope it gets a little better.
Yeah,
Like with like the little nitpicks that they have, and
yeah.
just delves more into the story and their backstories and stuff.
All right.
I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into the show. Obviously, we just rewatched the trailer because I didn't really remember much.
Yeah.
But like I thought it'd be pretty fun. And I actually enjoyed it a lot. Like when we watched the episode.
Oh,
Definitely.
can I just do one thing?
Mhm.
Okay, so we just finished watching the pilot of So Help Me Todd. Allie, you can go ahead and start talking about this one.
Okay. Um, so going into this show, obviously I didn't really remember a ton so that's why we had to rewatch the trailer.
Yeah.
But going into it, very excited to see Skylar Astin again because like loved him in Pitch Perfect and other things. So I was just very excited to see him in another show. Um, Honestly, like this premiere was actually kind of strong. It definitely was very generic and simplistic as well, just like Quantum Leap. But I did thought it was also fun and interesting. So it was like it's kind of like one of those hit or miss shows. Like you either really like it or you don't at all. But I still thought it was a good and strong premiere. The cast, I like them. They're very likable. They have like this genuine and authentic chemistry, which was nice and just nice to watch. Like nobody seemed like they were just like bored. um and definitely like Skylar Astin and Marcia Gay Harden, they were like incredibly strong, like with their performances. I feel like with this show, it's also another one that will get better as it goes on. Like this premiere, very simplistic, very basic, but it was also fun. Like I didn't really laugh a lot in this, but I still thought it was a fun show, very pleasurable. But yeah, it definitely seems like another show that'll get even better, like when it delves deeper into things. But honestly, I thought the ending was quite intriguing because it was kind of insane. I was like, oh my god, what's happening here? Like I was actually pretty intrigued by the ending. And I'm just excited to see more of that because I definitely want to continue this show and see if it's like if it continues to be strong and everything. Hopefully it doesn't go down. Hopefully it's a good show. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. So hopefully it stays that way. And I also gave this episode a B.
Well, unfortunately, I have to say that this is another Good Sam, where I think this is a show that you really like, and this is a show that I am just very lukewarm on. And the reason I compare it to
It's
Good
nothing
Sam is
like Good Sam.
I compare it to Good Sam in the sense where this is a show that I think you
I haven't
will
even
really like.
continued. I haven't even continued Good Sam.
Yeah, but I know you wanted to.
At some point.
But when it comes to this show, for me, look, there are some things that I think are strong about it. The strongest of which are that both Skylar Astin and Marcia Gay Harden work very well here together. They have a very good rapport. I think I enjoy their back and forth.
Yeah.
Skylar Astin, I think, is just a very likable actor, and so he's very easy to latch onto. Marcia Gay Harden, I think, is doing a good job in this role as this mother that's very overbearing, but has her heart in the right place. She's trying to turn her son's life around. The problem is this show is just painfully generic in pretty much every aspect for me. When it comes to characterization, I really don't think the show is all that great. Todd, especially as a character, is so deeply underwritten in this first episode.
Yeah, I don't think that.
He's supposed to be like a very just directionless guy who doesn't have much purpose within his life, but we don't really get to see any of this. We see him at a grocery store once, and we see how he's supposed to be viewed as like the black sheep of the family, and I just didn't get that sense in this episode. To be honest with you, I felt like I was just watching Skylar Astin. I didn't feel like I was watching a character. It didn't really feel like there was anything specific about Todd's character that I felt drawn to, and I felt like they just didn't do the greatest job with that in this episode. They need to do a better job of establishing his situation, establishing what he's been through, and then pulling him into the firm. But again, maybe I just like slower paced TV. I don't know. That's just how I would have preferred this episode to go. when it comes to Marcia Gay Harden and things like that. Her character really is just she is an overbearing mother, but she's also good at being a lawyer and things like that. That's kind of all she really is. There isn't really a ton about her that I
Yeah,
felt
I will say she's definitely very, like, overbearing and controlling for sure.
yeah, there wasn't really a ton about her that I really felt all that latched onto. And once again, similar to Quantum Leap, the case here, I just could not get invested in for the life of me because I knew it was going to be another case where this just ends at the end of the episode. Like it's not going to last after this episode because, well, that's just how procedurals work. And that's just something that I'm just never going to jive with. And that's something that I have accepted long ago. And that will continue to be the case in this episode. The other big problem with the show for me is I think it's just very tonally inconsistent. There are moments where the show is trying to be very funny, and for me, none of the humor landed. And then there are points where the show is trying to be really dramatic, very kind of emotional in that way, and that didn't really work for me either because it just felt like it was kind of coming out of nowhere. The whole thing with his father, especially, I'm like, what? Where did this come from? Where is this? How does this connect to anything? It was not very well established. It honestly felt more like an afterthought. He brings it up a couple times, and then we find out his father's actually alive, which I was just like, what the fuck? Very confused as to what was really going on there. I did not think it was very well written in that way. And so my biggest thing with the show is that look, if the show was really fun and the humor was like really landing for me and I was laughing a lot, then I might give the show a pass. On the flip side of that, if the humor was not working for me, but I found the characters really compelling and something that I was really drawn into, then I'd be like, okay, the humor doesn't land, but everything else is really good. Unfortunately, the show does neither of those things. The humor, it's not funny enough for me to give everything else a pass, but the characters aren't also compelling enough for me to give the lack of humor a pass. So overall, I just found myself very lukewarm on this show. I hope it develops into something more, but knowing CBS and the kind of shows that they put out, I really don't have much faith in this at all. I feel like this is the kind of show that my parents are going to watch and my parents will like. But that's just not the kind of stuff that I really like. So yeah, C for the pilot of So Help Me Todd. I hope this gets better, but right now I am just not really feeling it at all.
We'll see.
All right, so we just watched the trailer for So Help Me Todd, the next show we're going to be talking about. We did watch this trailer beforehand, but we watched it again. And my thoughts on this one are a couple things. One, I do think both of the actors here look like they're going to be a lot of fun. I like Skylar Astin. I like Marcia Gay Harden. It seems like they're going to work well together. Skylar Astin, I think, is a very charismatic presence, and I think he's definitely going to be one of the best parts of the show, undoubtedly. I think he definitely can carry a show very well. I've always enjoyed him since like Pitch Perfect and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and things like that, especially Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. I thought that he did a really good job playing the role that he did in that. But when it comes to this show, I like the fact that he is the lead here. It seems like he's going to do a good job with that. My only real concern about the show is I just feel it's going to get very repetitive. You have his mom, and she basically is the head attorney and things like that, and she kind of like hires him, and now they're working on all these cases together. And while I think in concept that's like a really fun idea, if the entire show is just going to be like his mom pretty much just like dictating what he does and just being a mom and assisting him, it's like it's just gonna get kind of stupid after a while, and I'm not really into that. It seems fun. I feel like it's gonna be funny initially, but they need to go beyond that. It can't just be that. There has to be more to the show, I think, in order for it to succeed. But that's really my general impressions. I think it looks fun, but it's nothing that's like grabbing me. Hopefully the show itself, I have a bit more to say about in terms of positives, but right now I'm just kind of like, we'll see.
I'm actually like really excited for this show. Like I've always been a huge fan of Skylar Astin, so I'm excited to see him in a new show. And I honestly, it does not give me repetitive vibes.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like this show would get better as get better and better as the show goes on. Like, I can see the first episode just being very simple and stuff and everything, and they're just like, because obviously it's about Marsha's character hires her son and everything. So I feel like the first episode's just going to be like them trying to like handle that. But I feel like as the episodes go on, it's just the story is going to get even more. I mean, hopefully it's not repetitive. It maybe it could be repetitive like in like season 2 or something. I don't know, but I feel like the show would get better and better as we go on. I hope. I Sitcoms and stuff are very fun. Um, and like this kind of show seems like a really fun one, and I hope it's good. I don't want to be disappointed, and yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't have any expectations in this one. She seems to be excited for it, but we will see how it actually turns out. We're gonna go ahead and watch the pilot of So Help Me Todd.
Woo!
Okay, so we just watched the trailer for East New York, and I have to be honest, I have not liked any of the shows we've talked about so far. None of them have really grabbed me in the way that I was hoping they would. Somehow this one seems like to be the one that might actually do something for me. The thing I like about this trailer right off the bat is all worries of this being like a typical cop show are kind of thrown out the window, because it seems like this show is really kind of exploring, the indecency of cops and things like that, calling them out
Hmm.
for things that they have done, not trying to present them in this, glamorized way that we see in a lot of shows. And that's something I
Yeah.
prefer about this show. It looks, I prefer about the way they're telling the story. It seems much more authentic. It seems much more like thoughtful in that way. And that's something that does excite me. You do have a good cast here. Amanda Warren, Jimmy Smith seem like they're going to give some strong performances in the show. I mean, yeah, I'm going to be biased because any leftovers actress I'm going to get excited for, but I'm sorry, Amanda Warren is a fantastic actress, and I'm excited to see her get more work. I also love Elizabeth Rodriguez. I love Olivia Lucardi. Just really good cast all around. I think that's definitely going to be one of the best things about the show. But overall, I just felt like this had a lot more to offer than I was really expecting, and I'm honestly kind of looking forward to seeing how this turns out now. I do think that there could be some aspects here that could get a little problematic. I think a show about cops in general is not always the greatest idea these days, but it seems like this show is trying to do what it can to really examine certain aspects of that line of work, and I feel like they're going to do that pretty well within the show, at least from the trailer. I like what I'm seeing here. What do you think?
Yeah, I didn't really know anything about this show. And I
I
just
knew it
watched
had
the
cops. That's it.
yeah. I just like we just watched the trailer, so like going into it, it does look pretty interesting. And honestly, um, I'm definitely like a lot of police kind of shows. This one actually looks pretty intriguing. Just like what you said, I kind of echo that. Like the storyline seems really interesting and a little bit different than just normal cop shows. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, hopefully, there's nothing problematic about it, like with the cop stuff. But
yeah.
this cast looks very strong and it looks pretty likable, so I'm excited. I don't have a ton of like pre-episode predictions, but I'm honestly excited to see if it turns out to be a good show. Like other so far the other premieres I've definitely enjoyed, but they're all like in the B range. They're not like an A range yet. Um, so we'll see. Maybe this will be my first A of the fall. I don't know. Um, but yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with the storyline and the plot and everything. Uh, yeah, hopefully it's a strong show.
All right. Well, we will find out very soon as we are going to watch the pilot of East New York.
Woo! NYPD.
Okay, so we just watched the pilot for East New York. I was honestly kind of pulling for this one. I thought that there was potential for this to be more than just the generic cop show there was. I really liked the trailer, but unfortunately, right from the beginning of this show, the beginning chase scene, it just reminded me of like any typical police show. Like you could literally go and like surf channels or like binge a show that's like any police show, and you will find it within this show. When they're talking about like people getting killed constantly, you'll find that in this show. When you talk about this when you talk about other sort of goings on within the precinct, you can talk about this show. There's just right off the bat, there's nothing about that really stuck out to me. I do think the performances are really strong here. The chemistry between the cast works really well. And there are hints within deeper writing. There's one character that I kind of like. She brings up her past about how I guess she had like she had like a drug addicted mother, and so she wasn't really taken seriously, and she wants to be taken seriously within the force. This is the only character that stuck out to me as like something more than just your generic police character. Like there's really nothing else besides that I really found myself latching onto. And so I don't really see myself sticking with this at all. I just found this to be a very just like run of the mill type show. It really was just mostly boring and generic to me. Nothing really happened in this first episode that was like interesting to watch. I do think it's going to last considering the type of shows that like CBS regularly, regularly puts out. But this really just didn't do anything to separate itself from like the minutia of like police shows we have out there. This was just very, very bland to me. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I actually went into it kind of excited.
I did too.
The trailer just seemed very interesting to me, and
it seemed like they were going to bring up like important topics.
It kind of gave me a little bit of SVU vibes, a bit, sort of. But
it's not a compliment for me.
Which SVU is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen the whole thing, but I've seen a bunch of episodes with Emily.
Yeah.
But
they all bleed together for me.
Like I watched the first couple scenes with her too, because like when I live with her.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I thought like I honestly kind of agree with there. Like I actually agree. I echo you that it's just a very generic, basic cop show. It doesn't really have anything special to it.
Mm-hmm.
Very basic, very simple. Like, yeah, storyline's just very simplistic, which isn't a bad thing sometimes. But like this one is just like, there was nothing really to it, you know?
No.
But like I did like the acting. I thought the acting was kind of the reason. That's mainly the reason that I would keep watching. And
yeah, the performances are good.
The acting's great. The cast.
No one particularly stuck out though.
Yeah, the cast have an authentic and genuine chemistry, which was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like it was a little boring at points. I was just like, I feel like this is the kind of show we just watch when we're bored, or if we're just like watching it as a background show.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could get better, but it could also get very repetitive. So it's like, it was a good pilot, but it was just like, I still gave it a B because I gave
it like a C.
Honestly, all the pilots so far have been a B for me.
All the pilots so far I have not enjoyed.
But I feel like if we continue the show, if it just continues to be repetitive and everything, I feel like it can go down for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'll definitely give it another shot and see what happens. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. But that's really it for our thoughts on East New York. I know this is one of the quicker ones, compared to the other ones that we have, but we honestly don't really have too much to say about this one. So we will see you guys for the next show that we'll talk about. So we just watched the trailer for Alaska Daily, and to be honest, this is like out of all the shows we're talking about, this is literally the only one that I had any prior knowledge about and had some kind of excitement for. And I gotta say, that still rings true with this trailer. I actually do have a lot of hope for this show. This does not look incredibly generic to me. This actually seems like it's telling a very interesting story. You got this woman, she's moved from like New York to Alaska. She wants this clean start. she ends up in this case where there's been a bunch of like, indigenous people that were murdered. Some of them are missing in the state of Alaska. She's trying to figure out, what's really going on. People are kind of questioning the logistics of why she's doing what she's doing. This to me just looks really well done. It doesn't seem like the show is going to be like very traditional in that way. It actually seems like it is going to ask some pretty hard hitting questions. It's going to dive into some important topics, and it's going to do it really well. Hilary Swank, I mean, would not expect her to be in a show like this, but she seems like she's really going to kill it here, as well as the rest of the cast. And the other thing that has me really excited is Tom McCarthy. Tom McCarthy, of course, is the director of Spotlight. He won the Academy Award for that film, and that is another film that asks some really, hard-hitting questions in that way and doesn't really hold back. And I've always found him to be a really strong director. So when I heard that he was behind this show, that's really what got me excited. The fact that Tom McCarthy, and this isn't one of those things where like he's directing the first episode and then he's out. No, he is helming the entire show. And that really does give me a lot of hope. That makes me feel like this could actually turn out to be somewhat successful. So color me stoked for this one. I actually think this has a lot of potential, but what do you think?
Yeah. We just watched the trailer, and honestly, this one really intrigues me.
Yeah.
Like, she's leaving her New York life to go to Alaska, which is like very different. Yeah. Both places are like not similar at all. So, and then
she's trying kind of wondering why that is.
She's trying to adapt and then figure out this case and everything. And like the cast looks incredible. Like just from the trailer, like it seems like they're gonna do a good job.
That one line where the mom's like, "You have no idea how I suffered." I'm like, I'm excited to see more of that scene. That seems like it's gonna be really powerful.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's gonna be a very powerful and like intriguing show.
Yeah.
And like Hilary Swank is just wonderful too. So
yeah.
And I just cannot wait. Don't have a ton of like predictions going into it, but I'm very excited to watch, and I hope it lives up to this hype.
Yeah, me too. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and watch this pilot. Please don't be another East New York. Be one that actually is exciting. But here we go. Let's see.
East New York wasn't bad, but
I wouldn't call it good either, though. But maybe this will. We will see. We will check back after. All right. All right, so we just watched the pilot for Alaska Daily, and I am very happy to announce that we finally found a show that I actually like. This was actually, I thought,
It's a miracle!
I know. Finally. I didn't think it would happen. I thought this was going to be like the first one where I'm like, I don't like a single one of these. But no, this was actually, I think, a really good start to this show. It's not perfect. I definitely do have some issues, but I want to get into the things I like because I haven't had a lot of positivity in this video, and I want to focus on that for a little bit. So first thing to start off with in the show, Hilary Swank is undeniable.
Also, you need to turn your phone.
Yes, I will do that. Hilary Swank is fantastic here. I think she does a really good job playing this role. Not always the most likable character, but she's a character that you're so endlessly captivated by, and it's because of Swank's performance. She just commands all of the attention when she's in the room, and I think she does a great job with that. There's a scene in this where she has like a panic attack that I thought particularly really stuck out to me. I just really liked what she ended up doing in this role. I think she is very much one of the best parts of the show. And I think Eileen as a character is very interesting to me. She's the kind of character who she's this news reporter, but it seems like she's a reporter, but she herself doesn't realize how hypocritical she's been. She's called out for things, and she doesn't really seem to understand the fact that she isn't necessarily the nicest person. She's somebody that doesn't really seem to care much about a lot of people. She cares a lot about her reputation. She cares about how she's seen, but she doesn't really have that extra care. In fact, the reason she takes on this case is because of the fact that, well, she needs more work and things like that. And so I think Eileen's arc throughout the show is going to be her growing more compassionate and learning to care more about other people. And I'm excited to see what she ends up doing that. I think Swank plays this role very well, and I really liked what she ended up doing. And also, for the first time in one of these shows, she's not the only character that stuck out to me. The other character I thought that really stuck out to me and honestly did give quite a strong performance here is the actress that played Roz, Grace Dove. I thought was great in this first episode. She's kind of like the foil to Eileen, or like she's the one where it's like, what are you doing? Why are you taking on this case? You know, she kind of gives her like that wake up call that I think she needs. You know, she talks to her about how it's like, listen, this would be covered more if this was like if these people were whites and if they were, you know, American, more people would be talking about this. But the fact that they're not, you know, it's something to think about. And that's something that you can tell that Eileen wasn't as, you know, clued in on. And I really like the inclusion of Ross as a character. I think she's going to be somebody that is definitely going to be good to follow. I really like her a lot in this show, and I think she's definitely going to be a big standout. So she definitely did stick out to me. All the performances, honestly, all across the board are really strong here. And I think that the show, it brings up some very important topics, and I think it covers them very well. And that's something that I definitely really did appreciate. That being said, and also the case, for once, I'm actually really intrigued by. I want to know more of what's going on here. You know, what are the details surrounding this case and things like that? You know, I really like how they bring up how little coverage this is really getting and how they want to bring that, you know, bring more of that to light. So, you know, I think overall, I really like what they ended up doing within this. I really like what they ended up doing within you know, the overall story. I think that's definitely something that I really did enjoy. It's not perfect though. There are some things that did bring this down for me. I thought the reasoning for her actual firing could have been delved into a bit. It kind of just happens abruptly, and she's fired and she's called out but of doing all these things, and I'm like, I wish we got to see more of her in that position. And I hope in future episodes, because I'm definitely going to continue watching this. You know, I hope in future episodes we're able to see that a little bit more. It's just right now, I think that when it comes down to her character, I think that for, you know, right now, I think they just need to dive into that a little bit more, and I'll be a little bit more satisfied. I also thought the dialogue wasn't quite as engaging as it could have been. There was just a bit of a disconnect. You know, I don't know if it's because it's a broadcast television show. It's not like on a prestige network or something like that. But some of the dialogue I did not think was the greatest. Some of the characters also are just a bit flat to me. Some of the other reporters that I didn't really connect with here. But overall, I do think this was a pretty strong start. I really enjoyed the characters in this show. I really enjoyed the overall case that we had here. And I do think this is a show that has a lot of legs and a lot of room to grow. So overall, yeah, I thought this was a pretty strong start. B- for this pilot. What do you think?
All right. With this one, I actually like really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like it actually lived up to the hype from when I watched the trailer.
Same.
I thought the cast was like really great. They have a genuine chemistry. They work well together, and like you said, like Roz was great too as a character. Did such a great job. And then obviously like Hilary Swank killed it. Like she's usually just phenomenal in any kind of role she plays. The acting was great. I don't think anyone was bad at all in this one. I like that it brought up a lot of important topics, but obviously like I like to see it go deeper with some things, but obviously I like that. And then the storyline was just very intriguing and interesting to me. Like it was definitely like very different from the other shows we watched as well. And I definitely think this one's the strongest show so far out of these pilots. And I've given them all B's.
Yeah.
I did think it was a little rushed at times, like in the beginning. But
that's something all these pilots is from. This one probably the least of them, but it's just been a consistent issue.
I feel like this show is going to be very consistent though, and I can't wait to see more because they can really like go in depth more with the story, which I'm very excited to like watch. And I don't feel like this one's gonna go like I don't feel like it's gonna get boring or anything. I feel like it's gonna be interesting.
I don't think so.
Like every episode, and yeah, I give this one a B+.
All right. So with
my
that,
first B plus of the
yeah,
of
we actually
fall.
really enjoyed this one. So hopefully the next few pilots we talk about continue to be on this high streak that we're on, but we will just have to see when we talk about the next one.
Yay!
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I really don't have much to say about this one. Allie, what are we talking about?
We are talking about Fire Country.
Yeah, the trailer for Fire Country.
This one, I mean, I don't have a ton to say either, but I will say it does look intriguing, but also a little basic. Like it just looks like a typical firefighter show in the countryside. But like, I don't know, I feel like it'll be fun, but also very simple. Hopefully it's good. I only know like one person from the cast, from like a couple movies. But like, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this movie. With this show. I hope.
I don't know. Maybe it'll be a movie at some point.
Maybe the pilot's really good. I don't know. I'm excited to watch. I'm going into it with very low expectations, but I'm excited. We'll see what happens.
I don't have much to say about this one. It looks like a generic firefighter show. It looks like the kind of show that my parents would love. They love things like Fire Country and Chicago Med and all the fucking Chicago shows out there.
Seems like something I'd watch with my mom.
Yeah. This one just doesn't really look that great. It looks like a very generic firefighter show. I don't really have much more to say than that. Let's just go ahead and watch the fucking pilot because I really don't have much to say. Hopefully it's good.
You're so excited.
But we will see. Anyway, we're gonna watch the pilot for Fire Country. We'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.
Woo!
All right, so we just watched the pilot of Fire Country. Straight up, I will be honest with you guys. I don't have much to say about this one, very much at all. This to me was pretty much what I expected going in. It's a very generic, very basic firefighter show. There's a couple things I can say right off the bat. The acting's good. Like, I don't think the performances are bad, but it feels just standard. Like, this is kind of just like what you would expect in a show like this. There's no one who's like going above and beyond and like really sticking out in terms of performances. It's just very like middle of the road, you know. So nothing really crazy going on there in terms of like performances. The plot is like one we've definitely seen before. This guy, he's like this young convict and he wants to like seek redemption, and everybody knows his story and they want to take him in and turn him around. And you know that he is going to somehow, you know, end up entrenched in like this group, and he's going to become a better person because of it. It's like, there's nothing really to latch onto with his character. They don't really dive into like what he's done or anything like that. He's just a really boring lead that I didn't really enjoy following. Max Theriot is okay in the role, I guess, but not really much to say with him. The other characters we get here, there's like some kind of, you know, romance going on with the characters of Jake and Gabriella. I didn't find them interesting either. I found them very bland. Jordan Calloway is a fine actor. I didn't mind Stephanie Arcelia in the role, but like nothing really stuck out to me. The scenes of the fire, look, the fire itself kind of looks like shit. Like, it looks very fake. It looks very obviously CGI, but I won't lie. There were a couple moments where they were able to give you some kind of tension. The problem is it's very few and far between. I really just don't have a lot to say about this one. Very basic writing. The characters themselves didn't really intrigue me. There's nothing really I latched onto here. To be honest with you guys, I completely checked out of this after like 20 minutes in. So yeah, I really just don't have a ton to say about this one. C- for me. I think this is easily one of the weakest of the pilots we've watched so far. I really have no interest in continuing this. I don't know if it's going to last. I really don't. Knowing CBS, I mean, it probably will, especially with there's this like appeal in firefighter shows. You got Chicago Fire, Station 19, now you have Fire Country. That's your thing, cool. It's not my thing. Allie, go ahead. I don't have much else to say.
All right. Yeah, this was definitely what I expected going into it. But yeah, I echo you that the fire was a little bit unrealistic. But
Yeah.
I will say some of the scenes were very intense,
Yeah.
and did like kind of catch my eye.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it gave me like Chicago Fire vibes, but also Big Sky vibes, which is not even about firefighters. It just gave me that vibe.
Yeah, because of like the small town and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, like the small town, the country, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I did think the acting was good. Like the performances were great. Like they did a good job, but it was nothing special, just very simple,
No.
very simplistic.
Yeah.
Very basic and generic firefighter show, but I didn't hate it. Definitely one of the weaker pilots, but like probably the weakest one so far for me. But I don't hate it. I thought it was like it might get better over time. We'll see. Maybe if it continues to be repetitive, I don't know how much longer I can watch it, but
I will not be continuing.
I still want to like give it at least one or two more chances.
Okay.
But we'll see.
I probably won't watch, but
it was definitely sleepy at points.
At points is an understatement. It was sleepy the entire time
Not
for
the
me.
whole time.
For me, it was.
But yeah, I definitely didn't hate it. But hopefully it gets better. But we'll see. B-.
Yeah, so that's Fire Country. Not really much else to say. We'll see how it continues, but right now, not really feeling it at all. We only have 2 more pilots to talk about, at least for now, unless they like announce something in the next like month or so. And we will check in with you guys whenever we've watched those. Woo. Okay, so we just got done watching the trailer for the Winchesters. So I will say right up front, my history with Supernatural is not much. I've seen like 4 or 5 episodes at most. I know that it went on for much longer than I really should have, from what I understand. And to me, this very much is one of those shows where it, at least from the trailer, it does feel like CW's like, well, we got to keep that legacy. We got to keep some bit of Supernatural on there. So we're going to make this spinoff show. But the one thing I will give it is that it does seem to have a different tone from the original show. This one's a lot more trying to pay tribute to like the 70s, and seems like it's really going to get into like tropes and things like that very well, and kind of be about like, you know, the parents of the main characters, which could maybe be somewhat fun. My worry just from this trailer is I just feel like it's going to be a rather generic show that we've seen plenty of times before. The effects, I mean, don't get me started. It's fucking CW. The effects are always terrible in these shows. Like, I think that's always going to be a problem for them. So I'm not even going to get into that. But beyond that, the trailer itself definitely had some fun moments. I like the moments that like were kind of, you know, like I said, making fun of tropes in like the 70s and things like that. I thought there were some fun moments there. But overall, this just kind of looks like a generic spinoff to me. I don't really feel like this is a show that's going to do all that much. I'm hoping that this is a show that starts off and it's like, okay, this is a spinoff for Supernatural, and then really kind of grows into its own. But we will really just have to see. I mean, I don't know. I hope this delivers, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, the trailer does look interesting. Like it has some fun moments, and like I do like the tone, like you said, because it is a little bit different from the original show.
Yeah, what's your history with Supernatural?
My only history was I've seen season 1 and then
Okay.
the beginning of 2.
I started with like the most random episode of Supernatural. They like turned to dogs or something. It was like a really weird episode to
What
start out
season
with.
was this?
What?
What season was that?
It was like season 7, I think. I reviewed like 4 or 5 episodes on like my YouTube channel, and then I just like stopped watching.
I definitely want to like continue or restart it at some point.
I don't, because I heard it's a show that goes on forever and doesn't end
I mean,
well.
it wasn't that bad when I watched like season 1 and stuff.
Also, what I've heard is that like 1 to 5 is great, and that they should have stopped at 5, but because it's CW, they kept it going forever.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
maybe I'll watch it one day. Who knows? Like as a binge. But this show looks interesting. It does look very generic, very simple, like just a typical CW show. But I mean, a lot of them I love. Like hence like Gossip Girl, 90210, One Tree Hill, stuff like that. But I think Meg
I wouldn't
Donnelly.
really count those. I'm talking more like modern stuff, like
Yeah, but
modern
anyways, with
CW
Meg
shows.
Donnelly, I think she'll do pretty well in it. And like it looks like it should be okay. Like this show, it's like I mean the cinematography from the like trailer looks pretty cool, very creative, but like I don't know, the show is gonna be very hit or miss. It could be either really good or really just basic. I don't see it being terrible or bad, but like I just feel like it's just gonna be very basic. But we will see.
Yeah, and we will see very soon because we're now going to go ahead and watch the pilot for the Winchesters, and we will come back whenever we have our thoughts. So, woo.
Woo!
All right, guys. So we just got done watching the pilot for the Winchesters, and like I said right off the bat, when it came to the trailer, I don't have much knowledge about the supernatural lore and things like that. And all that goes down here. And if I'm being honest, I want to say like 10 minutes into this, I kind of said, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have watched this one because I feel like this is going to be one of those shows where there's a lot of things revealed and there are a lot of things that come into play, and we're just not going to understand that. And so, based on that, you could be like, well, you probably can't fairly review this. And you'd honestly not be wrong about that because I feel like there are a lot of things in here that I just didn't understand the significance of because I don't have that much of an attachment to Supernatural overall. But that being said, we did watch the pilot, so we have to give our thoughts regardless. I was not a fan of this, to be honest with you. I do think there are some things that did work about this. Meg Donnelly is a great actress. I've always been a fan of hers. I think that she's very likable, and she's kind of playing a role that's against type. This character is a lot more like sarcastic. She is a lot more kind of like aloof in that way, and I like what she's doing here. I think she absolutely is the bright spot of this show right now. I think she gives a really strong performance here, and I like overall what she ended up doing in this show, and she definitely was a bright spot of it for me. And Mary Campbell is probably the character I was the most invested in this first episode. There's a really good scene with her
Yeah.
talking about her deceased sister and kind of what happened to her sister, and you can kind of see why she is so determined to go on this quest. And I thought that was probably like the strongest scene emotionally of the episode for me. Unfortunately, basically everything else kind of rings hollow here. And I mean, the biggest problem of all, I think, is the main character of the show is so boring to me. John Winchester just is not investing me at all. He's a war vet, and yeah, he has recently had some, his father's like disappeared, and he's trying to figure out, what's really going on there. And he's just kind of thrust into this whole mission, and that would be okay if Drake Roger had even a modicum of charisma, even a modicum of likability, and he does not. He is just so fucking wooden in this role, and I just did not like him at all in this show. He very easily just took me out of it. It really is just like, and people talk about this when it comes to CW shows, like the CW will cast people not really based on their acting ability, but just like how good they look. In terms of like, look wise. And I feel like that's very much the case when it comes to Roger, because I just don't think he's that great. He seems very bland. He seems quite inexperienced, and I'm just not really into any of what he's doing. So that really did fall flat for me. Obviously, again, with the CW show, the effects are shit. That's just something that we're gonna have to deal with. All of the effects and things like that are terrible. I also wasn't a fan of the cinematography in the show. I found it very boring, very drab, just not very investing at all. There was like this weird, like gray, yellowish filter, and it just was like really ugly and unappealing. And I didn't like anything about the cinematography here. The characters themselves, I also just didn't really find that interesting. Besides Mary Campbell, I just wasn't really invested in any of the characters that were presented. And I think the biggest reasoning for that, for me at least, and why this did not work for me, is this didn't feel like a pilot. It felt way too fast paced for my liking. We're very much just kind of thrust into this mission. We don't really get a chance to get to know any of these characters. And again, I know I've said this before. Maybe I'm just asking for too much within this show, but I just felt like they didn't do a good job of laying that groundwork. And I think it's because they expect you to go into the show already knowing the general premise of Supernatural. And I feel like if they want the show to stand out on its own, that's not really the right approach. And I think that really is the biggest problem here, is that it feels like this show really was only made to continue Supernatural, to continue that universe. So we still had something, because it's one of the only like properties the CW has left to muster. And I just feel like that was an oversight that really should have been changed. I think there was a way you could do something to make this feel different, but it just really didn't at all. It didn't really do anything for me. There weren't any real moments of tension or suspense, mainly because, again, most of it involved these terrible looking effects that were just so phony and laughable to look at. And again, maybe I'm just like very much kind of growing disconnected from these CW shows, and I'm just not really like into them anymore. And maybe that's why this didn't really work for me. But I don't know. This just did not really engage me at all. I checked out of it very quickly. I don't really have any interest in watching the rest of this whatsoever. So yeah, C for me. Not really anything that great. It's definitely had some moments, but wasn't really anything I was like super into. But what did you think?
I will say the acting was good overall. But I will say it wasn't really anything special.
Mhm.
It was really just a typical CW drama, but I
Yeah.
didn't dislike it at all or anything. Like, it wasn't the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I do love most CW shows, or quite a few of them. Um, but I will say I do need to finish Supernatural at some point so I can understand more of the references.
Mhm.
Because I've only seen the first season and then like a tiny bit at the beginning of season 2, I think. But this was a while
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, the cinematography could definitely be better. There were good ideas, but I mean, they just definitely need to like explain things more and like get more into get more into the characters. I echo you there. Meg Donnelly was great. Like, she's a great actress. Love her and everything I've seen
Yeah.
her in. I will say it kind of dragged on at some points.
Oh, yeah, it was very slow.
Just like
It
some
was
scenes were
slow,
very
but it also was, like, fast-paced.
yeah, it was like fast paced in some parts, slow at some parts were just like we
Mhm.
kind of lose interest in the like slower parts. But
Yeah, very uneven.
I don't know. I might continue watching, maybe at least like a couple episodes just to see what happens, but I also kind of want to wait until I eventually continue Supernatural. Because I mean, from what I saw, I actually did like it. I did enjoy it. And like Jared and Jensen are great actors. And also, Jensen's married to a girl from One Tree Hill, which is cute. um, but yeah, overall, just a very average, okay show. C plus for me.
All right, well, that's really our thoughts on the Winchesters. We have one more pilot left, before we wrap this up, so we're gonna go ahead and talk to you guys whenever we do that, so woo. Right. So the last show we're talking about here is Lopez versus Lopez. I'm gonna let you go first with this trailer. What are your thoughts overall?
Um, this show, like, I didn't really know much about it until the trailer and until you told me about it and everything. But it looks like it could be a fun and funny show. Don't know a whole lot about it, but it definitely just seems very just a simple little comedy that you
Hmm.
just watch like before bed, or if you just need something fun to put on or a background show kind of thing. I hope it's good. I'm excited to check it out. George Lopez is funny. But yeah, so far it seems very comedic and just like a feel good little show, and I'm excited to check it out.
You know, for me, when it comes to this one, I feel like this is going to be a very basic sitcom, but I think it's going to be
Yeah,
elevated by like the talent of George Lopez. Like,
I think so
um,
too.
when it started out, it was just like them doing TikToks and things like that. I was like, oh God, what the hell is this going to be? But then when he
That
started
was
doing
funny.
that whole rant about like how like teenagers talk and things like that, I was like, okay, this could actually be kind of funny. And I
Yes.
think George Lopez
Exactly.
is what's going to elevate this overall. I think he's really going to be the thing to like push this over the edge and
Yeah.
something that's actually fun. It doesn't really look like particularly anything that like groundbreaking or anything like that. It looks like a very basic sitcom, but like I said, I think this is one of those cases where it is going to be elevated by the talent. But that's really all I have to say, because that's really kind of all there is to say, I feel like, about this one. So I feel like we should just go ahead and watch this last pilot, and we will come back when
Woo!
we've seen Lopez versus Lopez. So we'll see you guys then,
Make our last one a good one.
hopefully.
Right?
All right, so we just got done watching the final pilot that we'll be discussing, of course, Lopez versus Lopez. And I gotta say, I actually really enjoyed this one. I'm not a big fan these days of like network TV comedies with laugh tracks, but this one actually kind of worked for me. I will say it can be very like paint by numbers at points. Like we've definitely seen this story before of like you have the older woman and she's, her dad is living with her and he's like this nuisance and they have different ways of looking at things and things like that. But I feel like this one did enough to make it feel somewhat fresh, somewhat exciting. I mean, the one thing right off the bat that really helps the show is you have an actual like father and daughter in real life. Like Mayan
Yeah.
Lopez and George Lopez are actually father and daughter, and that works really well. They play off each other really nicely. I really enjoyed their bond within the show. Mayan Lopez, I'm not familiar with. She's fantastic. Like, I think she's definitely going to be a really big talent after the show.
Oh,
I don't know what
yeah.
she's
Agreed.
done prior to this, but she does a really good job here. I would say she very much is the main character, and I think she carries the show very nicely. I really like what we got with her here. The show is also very frequently funny. I mean, there were many moments that very much had me laughing. I think George Lopez is just a very naturally funny actor, so it's not hard to get me to laugh at things that he says, but there were a lot of great moments here. The best gag for me in this episode was the recurring joke with like him wanting the lights turned off during certain moments, and then when he's watching the movie and he's like, "Oh, I like to keep the lights on. It helps me see it better." Like things like that was probably the funniest joke of the episode for me. I was laughing very hard at that. And so I hope they're able to continue doing stuff like that because I feel like that was a really funny part of the episode for me. I also really like the character of Brookie. I was not expecting to see Lacey Mosley in the show, but I think she's a really fun
Same.
side character that I think could definitely be a fun presence on the show, and I like what we got of her here. With her in with her on Tinder, just swiping left because that's what she likes to do. Like that's just her like activity. I thought was really funny. And I think the juxtaposition of both of these main characters is really fun to watch. Like Mayan is somebody who is a lot more social. She's somebody who has a very specific way of looking at life, and George is the complete opposite. And I think that back and forth, like I think it works really well in the show. But then there are some things that I thought didn't work here, but we'll get to that in a little bit. I will say the show can feel a bit uneven at points. There are parts of this episode that get weirdly serious, and I think some of them do work. Like the reveal of what happened to George, us finding out that he is basically homeless. He lost his home during the pandemic, and he's really fallen on hard times. I thought that was well done. It just felt a little uneven at points. I'm like, oh, now we're getting serious all of a sudden. So I feel like that is something that they can definitely work on in the show. Is just having maybe a tighter balance between those two, because there were moments where I'm like, oh, okay, this is serious all of a sudden. Um, but I did think that there is a genuine beating heart to the show that does work really well. And so, yeah, overall, I definitely enjoyed this. My only other issue is there is a joke that happens early on involving a certain callback to George Lopez. And I just thought it was just a little too on the nose for my liking. I found it quite cheap. I think you know what I'm talking about. Like literally happened in the first like 2 minutes of the episode. I just found it to be very unnecessary and just kind of like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, you didn't have to do that. That was like not necessary. But other than that, I thought this was a really fun start. I think in terms of network comedies, this is definitely one of the better ones that I've seen. And honestly, compared to most of the dribble that we've watched, I can actually say like this is one I legitimately want to see more of. I think this was a really fun start, and I do hope this show does go quite far because I enjoyed what I saw in this pilot. But what did you think?
I actually really enjoyed this one as well, honestly. Like, it was just really funny. I was highly comedic, and like the jokes were like quite hilarious, except I kind of agree with you on the one part in the beginning, but
Yeah, that
um
was like, why are we
one
doing
other
this?
quote that I laughed like a lot at was you look like someone who wouldn't get a rose on The
Oh
Bachelorette.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was so funny.
That is a character I think we need to see a little bit more of, though. Her
Yeah,
husband or boyfriend or whatever he
I
is.
think yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, he feels a little one note right now. Like he's just like the white guy that she's dating that George Lopez makes fun of. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
all he is.
Yeah, hopefully he gets like better. But I
Yeah.
also didn't dislike him. But yeah, this is very effective, like just the story and everything. And then like the dialogue was actually really funny
Yeah.
and not like forced. The acting was great, like Mayan and Jordan, all of them just wonderful and fantastic.
Yeah.
Obviously the
Also,
representation.
Selena Slava is also great in this show.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
don't get a ton of her in this first episode, but she's really good.
Oh yeah. And like the representation is obviously very important.
Yes.
It's very incredibly fun, but obviously it's definitely a typical basic sitcom. But I do think it's great. I think it's like a fun show that we just watch like before bed, or if we just need
Hmm.
something like a feel good show to just like cheer us up, or just put on when we're bored, kind of thing. Um, and yeah, I think it's a fun show. I'm excited to see what happens because I think we should continue it.
I think so
Definitely
too.
just
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, it's just a fun little sweet kind of show, and I'm excited to see more of the story. And then yeah, I want to see more of certain characters and see if they develop more. But I'm very excited, and I gave this a B.
I gave it a B as well. One of the only pilots I've actually enjoyed. So cool. We're ending this on a good note. But yeah, generally recommend this one. It kind of sucks that it came out so late because I feel like it's really going to go under people's radar. But I feel like with the appeal of George Lopez and things like that, I do think this has a really good chance of lasting. They already have like other episodes planned throughout like January. So hopefully that gets people like a bit more hooked into the show because I do think this is a comedy that honestly has a lot of legs. But we will really just have to see. But yeah, out of the pilots we watched, this was definitely like one of the better ones for me for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, hi. As you can tell, this video was very late. I figured, it's the end of the year. I should probably put this out, and didn't realize until editing it that, oh my god, we never did an outro. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this. It's always fun when Ali and I do this. We're actually going to be doing this more regularly moving forward. I think because, Ali and I tend to watch like every show together these days. We're probably just going to, from now on, just like review a lot of shows together. So if you like this, you'll definitely be getting a lot more of this into the new year. But that's really it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will see you guys in our next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.